Well, for more news on this, we have with us Ja Ian Chong, a political scientist and associate professor at the National University Singapore. Professor, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's first look at what the impact is going to be to global markets, given the chaos that we've had previously and the news that these tariffs are set to be reduced.
So the reduction in tariffs are ostensibly a good thing. However, whether they actually will be reduced or whether there will be a reversion after a period of reduction, that remains unknown. This is not the first time that the US and PRC have come together and ostensibly reached some understanding. And in the previous times, they unraveled because of claims of not one side or the other not acting in good faith, also unilateral decisions to shift and essentially renege. That could happen again. And I do note that this time around, President Trump said they were close to a deal. He didn't actually say that they were a deal, so there's still some moving parts. And both President Trump and General Secretary Xi, they are known to change their minds, and that could well happen.
Absolutely, yes. Of course, further question marks still raised. But let's look at broader US-China relations now. There does seem to be a warming in relations, given the fact that Trump has also announced a potential visit to China in April. How do you see that moving forward?
So sure, it could be some sort of inflection point, but April for our purposes, in sort of contemporary politics, is almost as good as a lifetime away. Things could happen in the middle. The visit could be postponed or held off because of one side or the other. So, there's some good and positive signs of stabilization, but I think the sort of fundamental issues of US-PRC rivalry, of the mutual suspicion between the two sides, they weren't really talked about, which means to say that while we have some mutual understanding on immediate issues, some of the sort of bigger, obstacles to better US-PRC relations, they remain, and they could crop up, and they could create surprises. One of those things that we've known from this past 10 months or so with President Trump in office is that, he brings a lot of surprises with him. So I wouldn't write that out.
Yes, and as we bring an end to our discussion, of course, talk over trying to end the war in Ukraine was spoken of. However, a clear area that was missed is the tensions with Taiwan. We know US is a major ally of President Lai Ching-te. We've also heard recently that China have said they're not ruling out using force to take Taiwan, a country and area that they see as their own. How do you think this moving forward? And could there be a further points of potential friction between the US and China over Taiwan?
So Taiwan not being on the agenda is, it's consistent with US policy about not negotiating over Taiwan. But the other thing is that it also means that a sort of major area of contention, is not talked about. So that could crop up. The US, for Taiwan is important to the US for several reasons, the semiconductors and all that. But also, if you look at Taiwan's geography, it sits on these really important sea lanes, air routes, and submarine cables that link the US allies of South Korea and Japan to Southeast Asia, to South Asia, to the Middle East. So Taiwan's position is, important to the US for sort of broader reasons. So too with the PRC, they see Taiwan as part of the first island chain, without control of which, they could be hemmed in. So these are outstanding issues. And I also do note that as the talk, just before the talks were going on, President Trump talked about the restarting of US nuclear tests, right? And there was also yesterday the news being broken about the potential tests of rocket systems that the US had based in the Philippines, potentially targeting, if there was a conflict, PRC assets in the South China Sea. So while there is a lot of positive talk and what looks like a forward movement, there are these areas of concern that are bubbling in the background that I think we would be remiss if we ignored.
Ja Ian Chong, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing that insight.
Sure.
Want the facts?
The latest developments?
News that gets straight to the point.
Well, we've got all three just for you. This is Firstpost Live, a brand new show, your window into what really matters.
Don't miss it.